So please state your name, age, and your major.
My name is Muhealden. I'm 21 years old, a systems engineering major at George Mason University.
And what year are you in?
This is my third year.
So how do you balance your American identity with your Kurdish one?
I try not to conform to either society too much. Being someone who's lived in both worlds, I try to take the best of both worlds and create an identity of my own out of that. So not too westernized, but not too traditional in the sense of being too Kurdish.
Are those lines that are constantly shifting, or have you managed to find a good balance between them?
Well, it is never constant. It is constantly changing because times change, people change in both worlds. Traditions change, the cultures change. So you have to keep up with that. You have to constantly take the best of what's coming next.
And you have actually spent most of your life here in the States. So do you find yourself feeling a bit disconnected when you do travel overseas? Let's say you're with friends or family, do you feel as though their opinions and their likes and dislikes are significantly different than yours, or?
I wouldn't say significantly different because I have not disconnected that much. But yes, there are certain things that they do that I don't, certain things they believe that I don't, or vice versa. So yes, there are those times when I feel a little different, but not significantly. But that's a personal thing for me, as I have not disconnected that much from them.
Do you feel that same slight disconnect exists with your non-Kurdish friends here in the States, that there's perhaps some things that they simply don't get about your culture or your background?
Well, here in Northern Virginia, people are rather more understanding than other places in the United States, I would say, because of the diversity that exists. So yes, there are some certain things that some people don't understand, but around here, because there's so much different people try to understand. I have no trouble with that ever. Yeah.
Going back to your roots, your ethnic roots, does Kurdistan exist to you? Whether that existence is literally on a map, or whether that is a bit more generically in the sense that it is a land that is occupied by our people. Does it exist to you?
Kurdistan, of course, does not exist as a country officially, and we all know that. However, to me, I was born a Kurd. I speak Kurdish. Even though officially I'm from Iraq, I don't speak a word of Arabic. My culture is Kurdish. My clothing was Kurdish. My clothing still is Kurdish in the traditional sense. And my heritage is Kurdish. I am from the land of the Kurds, therefore Kurdistan exists for me.
You were previously the secretary of the Kurdistan Student Organization here on campus at George Mason University. Currently, you are the Secretary General of the Kurdish Youth Club DC chapter. Why has it been important for you to remain active in the Kurdish community?
Remaining active in the community helps me stay in touch with my roots. It helps me educate myself and those around me. I'm still learning about my culture, both here and the Kurdish culture I've grown up with. It's very important that I do that. It's very important that the other Kurds, as well as non-Kurds that are involved in these organizations, continue to do that to keep the light of Kurdistan alive within the community. We can't just let that flame burn out just because we moved from Kurdistan. Of course, we can't just be Kurdish and not Americanized either. We have to keep that balance, like I said earlier. However, we can't just let it go. So we have to participate in these organizations, not just organizations, but as well as community events, know our heritage, our culture, and be educated about it.
So what words of advice would you offer to Kurdish youth living both in the Northern Virginia area and around the United States who are thinking about getting involved in different Kurdish organizations and youth clubs, but aren't quite sure if they should? They've heard about it, but they might not have experienced what it feels like to be involved directly. What words of advice would you give them?
I say there's plenty of outlets to go through. There's plenty of organizations to join, plenty of activities to do. And there's something for everybody. However, it's subjective for somebody to want or not want to be involved within the community. Some people don't want to stay connected to their roots, which is fine. However, I advise that they do, so that our next generation can also know their heritage.
And what are some of the thoughts that run through your mind when you come across friends, acquaintances who say that Kurdistan does not exist because we don't see it on a map? What are some of the thoughts that run through your head when you hear something like that?
It's not commonly a friend who says that, but I do have to say a lot of people tend to say that, and for some people, as you know, ignorance is bliss. If you just ignore the fact that it exists for whatever reason you want to ignore that, well then, if that's what makes you happy, that's what makes you happy. However, it's not the truth. We all know that. Kurdistan is now not the divided Kurdistan, but the northern region of Iraq is the officially recognized region, has its own parliament, has its own president, it runs its own economy, the borders are secured by Kurdish forces. I don't see why anybody would say it does not exist. It exists.
Okay. You mentioned this idea of change, of constantly having to change based on different cultures, based on the passing of time. The Kurds themselves, it seems, have changed too. 30 years ago, some would say that words that would characterize Kurds would be things like tragedy. But you mentioned the northern Iraqi region right now, the officially recognized Kurdistan region. What one word would you use to describe Kurds today?
Today, one word to describe Kurds would be torn, because Kurds throughout our recent history have been torn from freedom, torn from our homeland, torn from our families, torn from safety. And that's one word I would use to describe it.